If you've ever met someone who believes they're a criminal mastermind after watching 3 YouTube tutorials and half a heist movie, congratulations, you've met Robbie Kels. Robbie was the kind of guy who wore sunglasses indoors, not because he was mysterious, but because he thought it made him unpredictable. The truth? It just made him bump into door frames more often than he'd like to admit. He lived in a one-bedroom apartment that smelled faintly of burnt toast and misplaced ambition. And it was here, on a Tuesday afternoon, that he came up with a plan. Robbie sat on his sagging couch, half a slice of pizza dangling from his mouth, watching Ocean's 11 for the 7th time that week. When Brad Pitt's character said, "Don't do anything dumb," Robbie paused the movie, pointed at the screen, and whispered dramatically, "Challenge accepted." He grabbed his notepad, an old menu from Big Bill's Burgers, and started sketching. "Okay," he muttered, chewing his pen cap. "Step 1, get a gun. Step 2, rob the bank. Step 3, a profit." Then he stared at the list for a long moment and added, "Step 4, escape gracefully." That, of course, was the moment he realized he didn't own a gun. Nor did he know anyone who did. But he did own a Super Soaker water gun from his nephew's birthday party, bright green with Hydro Blaster 3000 written across the side. With a bit of spray paint and overconfidence, Robbie decided it was close enough. Every heist needed a crew. Robbie knew that. He also knew he had exactly one friend, Ted Morrow. Ted was 32, awkward, perpetually tired, and had the uncanny ability to look guilty even when he was innocent. The kind of man who apologized to mannequins after bumping into them. Robbie called him up. "Yo, Ted. Big opportunity. Life-changing. High stakes. Low risk. You in?" Ted, half asleep on his couch, blinked at the ceiling. "Are you selling crypto again?" "No," Robbie said confidently. "Better. A bank job." Ted sat up. "Like a teller position?" "No, man. A heist." There was a long pause. Robbie could hear Ted's brain buffering through the phone. Finally, Ted replied, "I think you have the wrong number." Click. Robbie called again. "Okay, listen," Robbie said before Ted could hang up. "This could be the one. The Evervale Savings Bank. Small-town operation. 1 guard. 2 tellers. And their cameras? From 2004. Dude, they record on DVDs." Ted sighed, rubbing his face. "Robbie, we can't rob a bank." "Why not?" "Because I don't even jaywalk without guilt. I return shopping carts to the exact spot they came from." "Exactly," Robbie said. "That's why you're perfect. No one will suspect you. You're basically invisible." Ted groaned. "That's not a compliment." But somehow, 20 minutes later, Ted found himself at Robbie's apartment, staring at a whiteboard that looked like a toddler's conspiracy theory. Squiggly arrows, doodles of money bags, and success circled 12 times. Robbie beamed. "Welcome to Operation Subtle Thunder." Ted squinted. "Why is thunder spelled wrong?" "It's creative branding." Robbie cleared his throat dramatically. "Here's the mission. Tomorrow morning, we hit the Evervale Savings Bank at 9:07 a.m. sharp." "Why 9:07? "Because it's unpredictable." Ted blinked. "Yeah. Nothing says professional criminals like missing opening hours by 7 minutes. Robbie ignored him and pointed at the whiteboard. "I'll go in first. You follow behind me, acting casual. We'll take control of the situation, demand the cash, and then—" "Wait," Ted interrupted. "What's that part about the dog?" "Oh, right," Robbie said proudly. "That's the distraction. Mrs. Hensley's golden retriever always barks at strangers outside the bank. We time our entry with her walk." "Classic misdirection." Ted stared. "Your plan depends on a senior citizen's dog." Robbie shrugged. "It's called environmental strategy." Ted exhaled slowly. "Robbie, I say this with love. You're the dumbest smart person I've ever met." The night before the job, Robbie insisted on a rehearsal. He transformed his living room into a mock bank. The couch was the teller counter, the TV remote was the vault door, and a goldfish bowl represented the money. Ted wore a hoodie 2 sizes too big. Robbie had on leather gloves and his newly painted weapon. "All right," Robbie said. "Run it from the top." Ted sighed. "Do I really have to yell, 'This is a robbery,' at your TV?" "Yes," Robbie said firmly. "Commit to the role." Ted took a deep breath, pointed his finger gun, and yelled, "This is a robbery." Robbie nodded approvingly. "Good energy, but less apologetic." "You sound like you're asking for directions." Ted frowned. "I am apologetic. I'm about to ruin someone's day." "Confidence, Ted. Robbery is 90% attitude, 10% luck. Pretty sure it's 100% illegal." They practiced for an hour, during which Ted accidentally sprayed Robbie with a gun twice. Robbie tripped on the rug, and the goldfish nearly had a heart attack. By midnight, they were exhausted. Robbie was hyped. Ted was regretting every life choice. The next day, Evervale Savings Bank opened its doors to sunshine and boredom. Inside, Clara Wynn, the teller, adjusted her glasses, sipping lukewarm coffee. Clara had worked there for 6 years, and her patience for nonsense was at an all-time low. At precisely 9:07 a.m., the door creaked open. Robbie strutted in chin high, sunglasses on, holding what looked suspiciously like a spray-painted toy. Clara looked up. Can I help you? Robbie slammed his hand on the counter dramatically. Everyone stay calm. This is a robbery. Clara blinked. You're kidding, right? No. I'm serious. Robbie said, trying to sound menacing. He waved the gun. Put the money in the bag. There's no bag, Clara said flatly. Robbie froze. Right? Hold on. He rummaged in his jacket pocket, pulling out a crumpled grocery bag that said, thank you, in smiley letters. Meanwhile, Ted walked in, late and confused, holding 2 coffees. Hey, I got your latte. Oh my God, are we doing it right now? Robbie hissed. Yes, we're doing it right now. Clara's expression was pure deadpan. You 2 rehearsed this, didn't you? Right on cue. Mrs. Hensley's golden retriever outside began barking furiously. The door jingled as she entered, muttering, can't even deposit a check in peace. The dog slipped its leash, sprinting toward Ted. Ted screamed, flailing, spilling hot coffee across the floor. Robbie turned to yell at the dog and accidentally hit the fire alarm with his elbow. Sirens blared. Sprinklers burst. Water rained down on everyone. This is fine, Robbie shouted, soaked. Stay calm. Clara wiped her face, unimpressed. You're holding a water gun. Calm is the least of our problems. The dog barked louder. Ted slipped on the wet floor, colliding with a display of commemorative coins. They exploded across the room in a shimmering shower. We're under attack, yelled one customer. Mrs. Hensley, thinking fast, swung her purse and knocked Robbie's sunglasses off. Not in my bank, you delinquent. Robbie stumbled, dazed. Ma'am, I'm robbing you, not auditioning for WWE. But she wasn't done. She whacked him again for good measure. Ted, meanwhile, was trying to collect the coins, shouting, it's evidence. We can still make it work. Evidence of what? Your incompetence. Clara shot back. In the chaos, Ted slipped once more, grabbed the counter to steady himself, and accidentally hit the panic button. The alarm changed tone. Loud. Urgent. Final. Everyone froze. Clara smirked. Well, gentlemen, that's the sound of your short-lived criminal career. Robbie looked around wildly. We can still escape. We'll. Before he could finish, Ted's wet shoes slipped again, sending him crashing into Robbie. Robbie fell backward into a stack of deposit forms, which collapsed in a puff of paper. From the street outside, all anyone could see was a blur of chaos. A barking dog, a screaming man, raining coins, and 2 idiots tangled in printer paper. When the police arrived, they found Ted unconscious under the Robber of the Year promotional banner, and Robbie sitting beside him muttering. It was supposed to be subtle thunder. At the Evervale police station, Sheriff Dale Knox, a man who had never solved a single mystery that didn't involve his missing keys, sat across from Robbie and Ted. So let me get this straight, Knox said slowly. You tried to rob the bank with a toy gun, and your partner fainted? Ted groaned. I didn't faint. I slipped. Clara, standing behind them, chimed in dryly. On coins you dropped. Twice. Knox rubbed his temples. Boys, this might be the dumbest thing I've ever seen. And last week, someone tried to rob the gas station with a banana. Robbie perked up. Did it work? Knox glared. No. And neither did yours. Mrs. Hensley, sitting nearby giving her witness statement, added helpfully, they're sweet boys, just stupid. Ted slumped in his chair. That's a comforting thanks. Clara folded her arms. If it makes you feel better, you did provide the best entertainment I've had in months. Robbie tried to salvage his dignity. In fairness, we almost pulled it off. Clara snorted. Yeah, if the goal was performance art. Ted groaned. Can I go home? Knox waved them off. Get out of here before I charge you with public embarrassment. As they walked out dripping and defeated, Mrs. Hensley called after them. Next time, boys, try a real gun. Or better yet, a brain. Robbie looked at Ted. Okay. So, round 2. Ted turned, eyes wide. Absolutely not. Robbie grinned. That's not a no. Ted groaned into his hands. You're gonna get me killed, aren't you? Robbie threw an arm over his shoulder. Don't be dramatic. Next time, we'll have a plan. Ted muttered. You said that this time. Yeah, Robbie said confidently. Practice makes perfect. Back in her apartment, Clara sipped her tea, watching the news report. Reporter Finch Rowan appeared on screen, dramatically declaring, breaking, the Evervale Savings Bank was the site of a daring attempted robbery today, featuring what witnesses describe as 2 confused men, 1 barking dog, and about 50 flying coins. Locals are calling it the bank confusion. Clara smirked. Yeah, that's about right. She leaned back, staring out the window as rain pattered softly outside. Small towns, she muttered. Never boring for long. And somewhere across town, Robbie Kells was already sketching a new whiteboard. At the top, in bold, messy handwriting. The bank confusion, reloaded. It was 3 days after the disaster that Evervale Savings started calling the robbery the event. Everyone else just called it what it really was, a circus with receipts. The footage had gone viral. Not because of the crime itself, but because of the clip. A barking dog, coins raining like confetti, and a man slipping, spinning, and landing perfectly in front of the camera like some clumsy action hero. The internet loved it. Local hero stops robbery with pure clumsiness, The headline screamed. Finch Rowan, the town's most dramatic reporter, was milking it for all it was worth. He stood outside the bank, hair slicked back, voice booming for the local TV. What began as a routine Tuesday morning has now become an inspiring tale of courage, coordination, and coffee-related chaos. In the background, Robbie and Ted were being escorted away by Sheriff Knox, both dripping wet, both staring blankly at the camera. The next morning, Ted woke up to a tray of free muffins on his doorstep with a note. "Thank you for your bravery. The Evervale Baking Club." He groaned. "Oh no. No. His phone buzzed nonstop. Interviews, congratulations, even a message from his mom. "You're finally on TV. I told you that boy Robbie was bad news." By the time Robbie showed up at his door, wearing sunglasses and holding 2 gas station coffees, Ted was hiding under a blanket. "Hero of Evervale," Robbie announced proudly. "How's fame treating you?" Ted poked his head out. "This is your fault." "My fault?" "Dude, you're trending. Hashtag slippery savior has like 20,000 views." Ted threw a pillow at him. "I almost went to jail." Robbie caught it midair. "Yeah, but instead you became a legend." "You're welcome." Ted sat up, glaring. "I tripped." "That's it. That's not heroism." "History disagrees," Robbie said, sipping his coffee. "People love underdogs. Especially ones who bark." Ted groaned. "That was the dog, Robbie." Robbie shrugged. "Semantics." By noon, Finch Rowan was outside Ted's apartment, microphone in hand, shouting into his camera crew. "Today we speak with the man, the myth, the slipper, Ted Morrow." Ted peeked through the blinds. "He found me." Robbie grinned. "Free press. Smile big." The interview was a train wreck. Finch asked profound questions like, "Did you know in that moment that destiny had chosen you? And what message do you have for aspiring heroes who also struggle with flooring traction?" Ted stammered. "I wasn't trying to be a hero. I was trying not to die." Finch gasped like it was poetry. Humility. True bravery speaks softly. By the end, Finch was tearing up. Ted just wanted to vanish. Meanwhile, Robbie had been busy crafting his own version of events. He told anyone who would listen that he'd strategically orchestrated the entire distraction, calling himself the architect of confusion. Clara Wynne, still at the bank, overheard one of these conversations while restocking the pens. She rolled her eyes so hard it could have started an earthquake. "Architect of confusion? You tripped over your own ego, not a plan." Robbie leaned against the counter, smirking. "You underestimate artistry, Clara." "I underestimate sanity," she said. "You're a walking insurance claim." But she couldn't deny it. Business had never been better. People came to see the legendary bank. Tourists took selfies near the front door. Someone even started selling t-shirts that read, "I survived the bank confusion." Mrs. Hensley, of course, was cashing in too. Literally. She'd begun telling everyone she was part of the brave resistance who defended the bank. The old lady now had a fan club. She even signed purses for $5. Sheriff Knox, on the other hand, was convinced this was all part of a larger conspiracy. He stood in his office surrounded by papers, muttering to himself. 2 men. 1 dog. Coins. Chaos coincidence. Or cover-up. Deputy Allen, barely staying awake, mumbled, "Sir, it's literally just 2 idiots and bad flooring." Knox slammed a fist on the desk. "That's what they want you to think." Back in Ted's apartment, things weren't peaceful either. Robbie had decided they should embrace the fame. "Listen," Robbie said, pacing. "The people love you. We use this. We turn it around." Ted frowned. "Turn what around?" "Our image. We go from criminals to heroes. Like redemption arcs. We can do interviews, merchandise, maybe a podcast." Ted cut him off. "Absolutely not." "Okay, hear me out," Robbie said, ignoring him. "We call it the Confusion Chronicles. You tell your story, I tell the truth, we both get rich." Ted threw a towel at him. "You're out of your mind." Robbie ducked. "Hey, I'm serious. We could make something out of this. Everyone loves a comeback story." Ted sighed. "We never had a front to come back from." Still, Robbie had that look in his eyes again, the same one that appeared before everything exploded last time. That night, Finch's evening broadcast only made things worse. Sources confirmed that the mysterious accomplice, known only as the architect, may have played a crucial role in stopping the robbers. Could he be the real brains behind Evervale's new heroes? Ted yelled at the screen. "You're not even a source." Robbie grinned. "See? Public perception. Momentum, baby." The next day, while Ted hid under a baseball cap at the grocery store, strangers kept stopping him. "Can we get a picture? My grandma loves your trip. You inspired my kid to wear non-slip shoes." Meanwhile, Robbie strutted through town like he owned the place. "Ted, we're legends. Time to act like it." Ted snapped. "You mean time to not rob anyone for a change?" Robbie smirked. "Minor details." Their argument was interrupted by Mrs. Hensley, pushing her shopping cart like a battlefield commander. "Boys," she greeted, "good to see my protégés alive." Ted groaned. "We're not your protégés." She ignored him. "You planning another heist, or should I start knitting retirement scarves?" Ted blinked. "Why would you even want to do another heist?" Dear, she said sweetly, I haven't had this much excitement since the 72 bingo riots. Robbie's eyes lit up. See? Even she gets it. Momentum. Ted turned on him. You're not doing another one. Robbie leaned closer. Yet. By evening, Clara was closing the bank when Finch showed up with his camera again. Clara Wynne, he announced, the sharp-minded teller who faced danger with grace. Tell us, what was going through your mind that fateful morning? She didn't even look up from counting bills. Mostly that I need a raise. Would you say the heroism you witnessed has changed your outlook? Oh, absolutely, she said dryly. I now carry pepper spray and aspirin. Finch turned to his cameraman. Bravery comes in many forms. When he left, Clara exhaled and looked at the faint scorch mark still on the ceiling from the sprinkler short circuit. Idiots, she muttered fondly. Meanwhile, at a diner across town, Robbie and Ted sat in a booth. Ted hid behind a newspaper with his own face on the front page. Robbie stirred his coffee dramatically. This, my friend, is only the beginning. Ted didn't look up. Of what? Our inevitable arrest. Our legacy, Robbie said. People are talking. We just need direction. Purpose. A sequel. Ted folded the paper. You're calling a crime spree a sequel? Robbie grinned. Hey, every good story needs part 2. Ted sighed. No, I'm done. Retired. Oh, heroes don't retire, Ted. I'm not a hero. Across the room, the waitress recognized him. Aren't you that guy from the bank thing? Ted groaned. Robbie answered for him. Yep, that's the one. Bravery in motion. The waitress smiled. You two are adorable. Ted dropped his head on the table. Robbie just beamed. When they left, the sun was setting, orange light cutting across the street where the Evervale Savings sign still flickered half-broken. Robbie stopped walking. You feel that? Ted muttered, heartburn. No, Robbie said softly, squinting at the bank. Unfinished business. Ted looked at him. You're not serious. Oh, I'm serious. We were sloppy, untrained. But now, we've learned. We've evolved. Ted laughed once, the tired kind of laugh. You evolved into what, exactly? Robbie smirked. Professionals. Ted rubbed his temples. Robbie, you can't even pronounce professionals after 2 beers. Motivation, Ted. That's what separates legends from losers. Ted sighed, staring up at the sky. We're definitely the second one. Robbie grinned. Not for long. Across town, Finch ended his nightly broadcast with a grin. Authorities confirmed that while the suspects have been released, the investigation continues. And as for our local hero, he's just getting started. Ted didn't hear it, but Robbie did. Sitting on his couch later that night, surrounded by half-eaten pizza and blueprints that looked like chaos on paper, he smiled. On the top of his new whiteboard, he wrote 3 words in red marker. Operation, second win. Then, underneath, in parentheses, this time, try not to die. And somewhere, as if on cue, a dog barked in the distance. The next morning, the town woke up to a headline, so ridiculous, even the journalists thought it was satire. 2 robbers, 1 toy gun, 0 success. Gail, the bank manager, sat in her office with a cup of coffee that tasted exactly like her mood, bitter, slightly burnt, and full of regret. Across from her sat Deputy Floyd, the kind of man who looked like he'd been chasing criminals since the invention of the wheel, yet couldn't catch a cold. So let me get this straight, Floyd said, adjusting his crooked hat. One guy tries to rob the bank with a plastic water gun. The other guy just joins in? That's right, Gail replied flatly. Like a flash mob, but with stupidity. Floyd rubbed his temple. And the dog. The dog is fine. Better than us, actually. He's got his own fan page now. Outside, the street was buzzing. The tiny town of Maple Junction hadn't seen this much excitement since someone spray-painted Gail is a snail on the water tower in 2009. Everyone had an opinion, and none of them were useful. At the cafe across the street, Robbie sat in a booth with Ted, both of them in cheap sunglasses trying to look low profile, which would have worked if they weren't wearing shirts that said, I survived the bank robbery. Listen, man, Ted said, sipping his milkshake. I still think we could have pulled it off if the dog hadn't attacked you. Robbie glared. The dog attacked me because you screamed, fetch the money. I was improvising. You were panicking. I was trying to motivate the dog. It's called teamwork. You don't yell commands at a random dog in the middle of a heist, Ted. At the counter, Penny, the sarcastic barista with eyeliner sharp enough to file taxes, leaned toward her coworker. If dumb was a crime, those 2 would be serving life sentences. Oh, they already are, her coworker muttered. Self-inflicted. Back at the bank, Gail was holding a staff meeting, which mostly consisted of her employees taking turns blaming each other. Lorna, the overly dramatic teller, spoke first. I pressed the panic button at the perfect time, thank you. The police just didn't show up because Floyd was busy posting about it on his Crime Time Chronicles blog. Hey, Floyd grumbled. People like the updates. You posted a selfie with the sirens in the background. Gail snapped. Meanwhile, Tim, the accidental hero who knocked Robbie out with a chair, was milking his 15 minutes of fame. He'd been interviewed 3 times, had a new haircut, and now referred to himself as the chairman of justice. When Gail called on him, he leaned back in his chair and said, "Honestly, I think I just did what anyone would do. You know, in a moment of crisis, you act. You don't think. You just let destiny guide your swivel chair." "Destiny didn't guide your chair," Gail said dryly. "Gravity did." But the chaos didn't stop there. Because Maple Junction loved two things: gossip and overreactions. Soon, rumors spread that the robbers were part of a secret gang called the Coin Collectors. A local podcaster started an investigation series that mostly consisted of wrong facts and dramatic pauses. At the diner that evening, the main cast of Maple Junction's Weirdest Day had unintentionally gathered again. Gail, Floyd, Penny, Ted, Robbie, and Mrs. Hensley, the old lady who'd casually looted half the spilled change during the chaos. "So what happens now?" Penny asked, chewing on a fry. "You two going to jail or starting a YouTube channel?" Robbie shrugged. "Probably both." Ted added, "We were thinking of naming it Criminally Confused." Gail nearly spit out her drink. "You're joking." "Not at all," Robbie said proudly. "It's like crime tutorials, but for people who shouldn't commit crimes. Step 1, Ted said, pretending to narrate. Bring the wrong weapon. Step 2, partner with an idiot. Step 3, go viral accidentally. Mrs. Hensley nodded approvingly. "Honestly, boys, you might as well make money off your mistakes." Worked for politicians. Everyone at the table went silent. Floyd chuckled. "She's not wrong." The group continued trading roasts until closing time, each one trying to outwit the other. Penny called Floyd Deputy Slowpoke. Gail called Robbie Discount James Bond. Ted called Penny Caffeine with legs. "Say what you want," Robbie said, finally standing to leave. "But I made history yesterday." "Yeah," Gail said with a smirk. "The history of dumb decisions." As the laughter echoed through the diner, no one noticed the man in a dark coat sitting in the corner booth, quietly reading a newspaper titled "Local Chaos Sparks Copycat Crimes." He sipped his coffee, smiled faintly, and muttered to himself, "Amateurs." Outside, a new sign had been taped to the bank's door. Closed for repairs and emotional recovery. The town might have been small, but the story was growing faster than anyone expected. And for Robbie and Ted, well, they were just getting started. The morning after their historic diner conversation, Robbie and Ted woke up to find themselves trending. Not in a cool way, in a we can never show our faces again without sunglasses and fake names kind of way. Every news outlet, from Maple Junction Gazette to a random guy's TikTok account called at Justice Juice, had their faces plastered under the headline, "World's Dumbest Heist, Toy Gun, Barking Dog, and Coins Everywhere." Ted stared at his phone, mouth hanging open. "Bro, we have 400,000 views." Robbie groaned, face buried in his pillow. "That's not something to celebrate. That's our mugshots doing a victory lap." Ted scrolled. "No, seriously, look. Someone made fan art of us. You're holding a banana instead of a gun, and I'm riding the dog like a cowboy." Robbie peeked up. "Why do I look muscular in that drawing?" Ted shrugged. "Internet's full of liars." Across town, Gail was sitting in her office again, watching the same clip on loop. The security footage, edited to circus music by some internet prankster, showed Robbie bursting in, Ted tripping, coins flying, the dog barking, and Tim's heroic swivel chair move in slow motion. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from her niece. "Aunt G, you are Banks a meme. Face with tears of joy, face with tears of joy, face with tears of joy." Gail exhaled slowly. "Fantastic. My career is now a punchline." Meanwhile, Deputy Floyd had turned the whole thing into a personal PR campaign. He went on local TV wearing his official badge, which, truthfully, looked like it came from a Halloween costume pack. "Yes, we handled the situation swiftly," he said confidently to the news anchor. No one was hurt, except maybe the criminal's dignity. The anchor smiled politely. "And your blog, Crime Time Chronicles, has gained a lot of attention too, hasn't it?" Floyd leaned back smug. "Public loves justice, baby. Especially when it's clumsy." But the chaos didn't stop there. Because Ted, genius that he was, decided to lean into the fame. By noon, he had created a YouTube channel called Criminally Confused, with their first video titled, "How Not to Rob a Bank or a Tutorial from Professionals." Robbie tried to object. "You do realize this could make things worse, right?" Ted grinned. "Or better. Think of it, man. We're turning embarrassment into profit. You think the police will subscribe?" Robbie said dryly. "Maybe," Ted said. "For training purposes." They filmed in Robbie's garage. The set was a mess of cardboard boxes, old tools, and a lawn flamingo in the corner. Ted wore sunglasses indoors. Robbie reluctantly sat beside him holding the now-famous toy gun. "Step 1, Ted said into the camera. Don't use props from the dollar store." "Step 2, Robbie added. Don't take advice from Ted." "Step 3, Ted continued cheerfully. If you accidentally go viral, just roll with it." The video exploded. Within a day, they hit 1 million views. Comments flooded in. "These guys are idiots. I love it. More tutorials. Next time, how to fail a car chase." Robbie's sarcasm is gold. By evening, Ted was pacing the living room, shouting, "We're influencers now, dude." Robbie, scrolling through hate comments, muttered, "Congratulations. We're famous for being morons. Meanwhile, Penny, the cafe barista, decided to cash in on the chaos too. She made a drink called the Bang Job Latte, espresso with a splash of caramel and a sprinkle of chaos dust, aka cinnamon. It sold out in an hour. At the diner, Gail sat in a booth with Floyd again, trying to discuss damage control while ignoring the new billboard across the street that said, "Visit Maple Junction, home of the great toy gun heist." "I'm quitting," Gail said, sipping her coffee. "I can't be the face of a bank that's now a tourist attraction." Floyd grinned. "You could lean into it. Maybe do guided tours." She gave him a death stare. "Floyd, I swear." "Hey, don't blame me," he interrupted. "Blame those two idiots. They're the ones turning your trauma into merch." And sure enough, Robbie and Ted had started selling t-shirts online. "Coins fly, we try. Official toy gun enthusiast. I rob banks emotionally." Their followers adored it. The police, not so much. A few days later, the town held a safety awareness event, which turned into a full-on roast session. The mayor invited Robbie and Ted to speak his cautionary tales. "Just don't glorify the crime," Gail warned. "Got it," Robbie said. "We'll glorify the stupidity instead." When they took the stage, the crowd went wild. Ted waved like a celebrity. Robbie sighed and took the mic. "Hi, I'm Robbie," he said dryly. "You might remember me from such hits as Oops, That Wasn't a Real Gun, and Help, I Slipped on a Coin." The crowd erupted in laughter. "And I'm Ted," Ted added, striking a pose. "The visionary behind the chaos. The man who turned failure into a brand." Someone from the audience shouted, "You guys should rob the mayor's office next." Robbie smirked. "No, we already hit our career high and moral low." After the event, Gail walked up to them, shaking her head but smiling despite herself. "You two might be idiots," she said, "but I'll admit you're entertaining idiots." Ted grinned. "That's all we ever wanted." Robbie muttered, "I wanted money. But sure, validation's fine." As the sun set over Maple Junction, the small town glowed with the strange pride of being famous for all the wrong reasons. And in a dark corner of the cafe, the same man from before, the one with the newspaper, smiled faintly again. This time he whispered, "They have no idea what's coming next." Outside, a van pulled up with the words Federal Crimes Division Observation Unit printed discreetly on the side. Because apparently, fame had a price tag, and the bill was about to arrive. By the time Robbie and Ted woke up the next morning, Maple Junction had gone from tiny forgotten town to the internet's favorite clown show. Every gossip page, every news site, every morning talk show was talking about them again. Ted was sprawled on the couch, half asleep, watching the news. Robbie stumbled into the living room with a bowl of cereal and squinted at the TV. A smiling reporter announced, "And in today's update on the great toy gun robbery, federal agents have officially arrived in Maple Junction to review inconsistencies in the case." Which, considering this town, could take a while. Ted blinked. "Federal agents? Bro, they're treating us like Ocean's 11. Robbie sat down. "We're more like idiots, too." At that moment, there was a loud knock at the door. Ted froze. "That's it. They're here. We're going to jail. Say goodbye to my YouTube career." Robbie sighed, set down his spoon, and opened the door to reveal Agent Lyra Vanstone, tall, sharp, and carrying a clipboard like it was a weapon. Beside her stood Agent Quinn Harlow, who looked perpetually unimpressed, as though he'd seen every form of stupidity known to man and was not thrilled to find a new variety. "Mr. Robbie Mace and Mr. Theodore Blake?" Lyra asked in a calm, no-nonsense tone. Ted immediately blurted, "Depends who's asking." Quinn raised an eyebrow. "Federal Bureau of Investigation." Ted blinked twice, then smiled awkwardly. "In that case, no, never heard of them." Robbie groaned. "Ted. They were invited, ordered, really, to come down to the bank for an informal review." Gail was already there, looking like she hadn't slept in 3 days. Floyd, the deputy, was attempting to look official by polishing his badge with a napkin. The bank lobby was full of reporters, camera flashes, and curious townsfolk pretending to accidentally walk by. Agent Lyra began, "We're here to assess whether this incident was an isolated case or part of a larger criminal pattern." Ted whispered to Robbie, "She thinks we're part of a gang. Should we tell her we can barely plan lunch?" "Don't say anything," Robbie hissed. Lyra flipped through her file. "You two claim the robbery was spontaneous?" Robbie nodded. "If by spontaneous you mean unplanned, underfunded, and underwhelming, then yes." Quinn looked up. "And yet, you decided to film yourselves afterward and profit from the crime." Ted proudly said, "Content creation, sir." "Criminal content creation," Lyra corrected sharply. Floyd, leaning in, whispered to Gail, "Should I cuff them now, or wait till they say something even dumber?" Gail muttered, "Give it 10 seconds. Lyra continued, "We also received reports that someone might have encouraged you." Ted frowned. "Encouraged? You mean like emotionally?" "No," Lyra said, eyes narrowing. "Like a possible accomplice." Robbie looked genuinely confused. "What accomplice?" Lyra placed a photo on the table. It showed the man from the cafe, the one with the newspaper, watching them. "Do you know this man?" she asked. Ted squinted. "Kinda looks like my high school math teacher." Robbie stared. "I've never seen him before." Lyra exchanged a glance with Quinn. He's been spotted around you both, at the diner, the cafe, even outside your apartment. Floyd, trying to sound smart, said, "So you're saying that someone's stalking our idiots?" Lyra ignored him. This could be bigger than a joke. Someone might have staged the whole event. Robbie sighed. If that's true, they owe me money for emotional damage. Ted leaned in. Or royalties for the YouTube channel. Quinn finally snapped. You two are unbelievable. At that point, Mrs. Hensley, the old lady from the robbery, waltzed into the bank carrying cookies. I heard there's a federal investigation. How exciting. Would anyone like a snickerdoodle? Lyra blinked. Ma'am, this is a crime scene. Mrs. Hensley smiled sweetly. Dear, this whole town is a crime scene. Ted whispered to Robbie. I love her energy. While the agents interviewed everyone, Penny from the cafe was outside, live streaming the entire thing for her followers. Y'all, the feds are in town, she said, holding up her phone. Maple Junction just went from sitcom to true crime documentary real fast. Inside, things only got messier. Floyd was trying to impress Lyra by pretending to help. We've had cases like this before, he said. Back in 17, a guy tried to rob the gas station with a stapler. We called it office supplies gone rogue. Quinn pinched the bridge of his nose. Why do I feel like every crime in this town involves something from a hardware store? Finally, after hours of chaos and absolutely no progress, Lyra closed her folder. All right. Until we know more, you two, she pointed at Robbie and Ted, are to remain in town. No travel, no filming, and no public stunts. Ted raised his hand. Define stunt. Anything that involves you, Lyra said flatly. As they walked out of the bank, Ted sighed. So, grounded by the FBI. Cool, Robbie muttered. Honestly, that might be the smartest thing anyone's done to us. That night, the two sat on their porch, eating chips in silence. The quiet was rare and uncomfortable. Ted finally said, You think someone really set us up? Robbie stared into the distance. If they did, we played right into it. The streetlights flickered. Across the road, a car engine purred quietly, headlights dimmed. Inside it, the mysterious man was back, phone pressed to his ear. They're staying put, he said. Good. Everything's right on schedule. He hung up, started the car, and drove off into the night, leaving behind a single coin rolling slowly into the gutter. The next day, Maple Junction woke up to the kind of tension that only small towns can generate, where everyone knows something's wrong, but no one knows what it is, so they all just gossip about it instead. Every coffee shop, salon, and barber shop was buzzing. The words FBI, Robbie, and Ted were being used more than good morning. Penny's Cafe even had a chalkboard outside that read, Today's special, federal roast with a side of dumb luck. Inside the cafe, Robbie sat hunched over his laptop, wearing a hoodie like a man hiding from his own fame. Ted, of course, was wearing sunglasses and talking too loudly on purpose. Ted grinned. Look, man, I'm telling you, we just need one more viral video. We could explain our side, clear the air, control the narrative. Robbie looked up slowly. The FBI told us not to post anything. Ted shrugged. Yeah, but they said no public stunts. This would be a clarification. Totally different genre. Right? Robbie muttered. Because the law definitely works on genre. Penny, wiping down the counter, leaned over. If you two want to clarify something, start with your brain cells. They're clearly missing. Ted pointed at her. Hey, those brain cells are taking a sabbatical. Robbie sighed. Permanent one, probably. Just as they were bickering, Gail stormed in, hair frazzled, folder in hand, and the permanent expression of someone who'd aged 5 years in 5 days. You two idiots, she snapped. Do you ever plan to stop causing me migraines? Ted smiled politely. No promises. She dropped a stack of papers on the table. Agent Vanstone called me this morning. They're officially opening an undercover operation right here in town. Robbie blinked. Undercover? For what? The Great Toy Gun Mafia. Gail glared. Don't joke. Someone's been feeding information about the bank security system to outsiders. And whoever it is, they knew when our alarms were down. Ted whistled. So there really is a criminal mastermind? Yes, Gail said. And unfortunately, you two morons might have stumbled into their setup. Robbie rubbed his forehead. Of course. We tried to fake a robbery, and it turns out we accidentally exposed a real one. Congratulations, Penny said dryly. You're the heroes nobody asked for. Before Gail could say more, the cafe door jingled open again. In walked agents Lyra Vanstone and Quinn Harlow, both wearing civilian clothes that somehow still screamed government issue. Lyra glanced at Robbie and Ted. Gentlemen, we're assigning you temporary cooperation status. Ted blinked. Like, we're helping the FBI? Quinn muttered, helping might be too strong a word. Robbie frowned. What exactly do you want us to do? Lyra smirked slightly. Keep doing what you're good at. Ted perked up. Being awesome. No, she said flatly. Being idiots. Penny nearly choked laughing. Lyra continued, if this mastermind is watching, they'll assume you're still clueless. We'll monitor who contacts you, who follows you, who suddenly takes an interest. You'll act normal. Robbie sighed. Normal is subjective. Just be yourselves, Lyra said. Loud, reckless, and oblivious. Ted nodded enthusiastically. So, basically, Tuesday. That evening, Operation Dumb Luck began. The FBI wired up Robbie and Ted's apartment with microphones and cameras. Floyd insisted on helping, though his main contribution was getting tangled in wires and asking if the cameras could do TikTok filters. Meanwhile, Gail reluctantly joined the operation center in her office, where a dozen monitors flickered with live feeds. She looked at Lyra. So, what exactly are we expecting to happen? Lyra leaned back, arms crossed. Whoever's behind this won't stay quiet. They'll either approach them, or try to shut them up. Comforting, Gail muttered. Back at the apartment, Ted was obliviously dancing in front of the hidden cameras, trying out intros for their unreleased comeback video. Yo, what's up, internet? He said to his reflection. It's your favorite accidental criminals. Robbie threw a pillow at him. Dude, we're bait, not influencers. Ted grinned. Why can't we be both? Hours passed. Nothing happened. Robbie fell asleep on the couch. Ted started watching a cooking show, and the agents monitoring the feed looked like they'd lost the will to live. Then, at 11:43 p.m., something changed. A small envelope slid under their front door. The sound was so faint it almost went unnoticed, except for the dog outside barking once, then going silent. Robbie sat up, bleary-eyed. Did you hear that? Ted turned down the TV. Maybe it's fan mail. Robbie stared at the envelope. Yeah, because fans usually deliver letters under the door at midnight. He picked it up carefully. The front was blank, no return address, no name. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Typed in neat, deliberate font were 5 words. Stop playing before you drown. Ted frowned. That's dramatic. Robbie looked up at him. That's a threat. In the surveillance vent outside, Lyra's headset crackled. We've got something. Someone just delivered a message. She turned to Quinn. Trace the area. Cameras, doorbell feeds, everything. Quinn's fingers flew across the keyboard. A few seconds later, a grainy image appeared on the screen. A man in a dark coat, walking away from the apartment complex, head down. The same man from the cafe. Lyra narrowed her eyes. He's making his move. Back inside, Ted was still holding the letter. You think he means like metaphorically drown? Or like actual drowning? Robbie stared at him. Ted, if we end up in a lake, I'm haunting you. Ted nodded. Fair. But imagine the documentary, though. Robbie threw the letter at him. You're insane. Outside, the man disappeared down the street, calm, confident, and completely unfazed. The game had changed. The idiots were officially part of something serious. And for the first time, Maple Junction's favorite clowns might have stumbled into real danger. The morning after the coin explosion could only be described as pure, unfiltered awkwardness. Robbie woke up in the back of the florist's van, face stuck to a bag of potting soil, with a single daisy pressed against his cheek. Across from him, Gordo was asleep sitting upright, still clutching a bag of coins like it was a teddy bear. His hair looked like it had been attacked by static electricity, and he was snoring loud enough to wake the entire town. Marla, however, was already up. Somehow she'd brewed coffee, cleaned her shirt, and was sitting on a milk crate like a field general plotting their next move. Okay, she said, voice sharp as caffeine. We've got a little problem. Robbie groaned. If it's about the coins, I can't explain. It's not the coins, Marla said. It's that the entire town thinks 3 mysterious robbers stole a donation jar for orphan puppies. There was a moment of silence. Then Gordo rubbed his eyes and muttered, We did. Marla sighed. Yeah, but we were accidentally heroic. We stopped the robbery. Robbie blinked. We were the robbers. Semantics, she snapped. It's all about framing. She pointed toward the newspaper she'd found at a diner. The headline read, Mysterious Trio Foils Robbery, Vanishes into Floral Legend. Gordo squinted at it. Well, that's kind of flattering. Marla grinned. Exactly. We're heroes. Temporary ones. And heroes need a getaway. Robbie's head thunked against the wall of the van. You do realize we're sitting in a stolen florist truck? Borrowed, she corrected. It's branding. We blend in. Nobody suspects flower people. Before Robbie could argue, Gordo yawned and said, Cool. I always wanted to go on a road trip. What's the plan, boss lady? Marla smiled with the confidence of a woman who absolutely did not have a plan. Simple. We drive south, lay low, maybe hit a roadside diner. Eventually, we come back, clear our names, and sell the movie rights. Robbie groaned. This isn't the Italian job. This is the idiot job. Don't be so hard on yourself, Gordo said, patting him on the shoulder. You're more like the nervous intern in an action movie. The one who keeps screaming, we shouldn't be doing this. Because we shouldn't. Robbie barked. We're literally fugitives with confetti in our hair. Marla started the engine with a flourish, the van coughing like it needed a chiropractor. Relax, Captain Anxiety. I know a shortcut. The van lurched forward. A banner that read Grand Opening Floral Fiesta flapped off the back as they sped onto the highway. Within 10 minutes, they were lost. The GPS was stuck in demo mode, Gordo was trying to read a paper map upside down, and Robbie was stress-eating stale croissants from a catering box in the back. Turn left, Marla barked. There's no left, Robbie shouted. Then make one, she yelled back. The van screeched down a dirt path that led straight into a farmer's market. They froze. Dozens of vendors turned their heads as the floral van rolled slowly between stands. A kid pointed at them. Mom, look, the flower bandits. Oh great, Robbie muttered. We've got fans now. Marla grinned, rolling down the window. Smile and wave, boys. Smile and wave. A man selling honey leaned in. Hey, didn't you folks stop that robbery yesterday? My wife loved you on the news. Robbie's mouth opened, then closed. Oh yeah, that was us. Defenders of finance. Marla winked. Pollinators of justice. Gordo flexed. Guardians of the floral galaxy. Somehow they were applauded. Applauded. People started giving them free fruit. One lady handed them a pie, and someone else stuck a daisy behind Robbie's ear. As they left the market, Marla was practically glowing. See? Public opinion, baby. That's how you win. Robbie stared out the window. You realize this is going to end horribly, right? Only if we let it, she said, smirking. Now let's find somewhere to crash. Preferably a motel with no cameras and good pancakes. They eventually found one. The Sleepy Squirrel Inn. It looked like a place that hadn't been vacuumed since 1987. The neon sign flickered between sleep and quarrel. Inside, the receptionist, a teenage boy chewing gum, looked them up and down. Y'all here for the Squirrel Festival? Marla didn't miss a beat. Absolutely. Big squirrel people. They got their keys. Room 3 smelled faintly of pine and poor decisions. Gordo immediately flopped onto the bed and started flipping through TV channels. Robbie paced. We need to figure out how to explain this mess before the cops find us. They won't, Marla said confidently. You saw the news. We're local legends now. Just as she said that, the TV flashed with breaking news. New footage reveals Hero Trio may actually be the robbers. The screen showed a blurry image of Robbie holding the toy gun, Gordo tripping, and Marla yelling Giogo go in slow motion. The room went silent. Then Gordo muttered, well, that didn't age well. Marla sighed. Okay. Plan B. Robbie rubbed his temples. What's plan B? Same as plan A, she said. But with more running. He groaned. You're the reason my hairline's receding. Gordo snorted. Nah, that's genetics. Marla grabbed her bag. Let's go, flower bandits. The legend continues. Robbie threw his hands up. Why are we even doing this anymore? Because Marla said, kicking the door open dramatically, once you start chaos, you might as well make it look good. And with that, they bolted out of the Sleepy Squirrel Inn, past a family of actual squirrel enthusiasts, and into the night. 3 idiots, 1 fake mustache, and 0 plants. Somewhere behind them, the TV continued playing the breaking news. The headline changed again. Trio still at large. Public divided, heroes or menaces. Marla grinned as they disappeared down the road. Let them decide. We're just getting started. It was 2 a.m. when Robbie, Marla, and Gordo rolled into the next town. The florist van wheezed into the parking lot of a 24-hour diner called Ecstasy, which promised bottomless pancakes and free refills for fugitives, though Robbie was pretty sure that last part was just graffiti. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed like insects. A waitress named eyed them suspiciously as they stumbled in, still looking like rejects from a crime-themed flower parade. Robbie's shirt said petals and panic. Marla's hair was tucked under a baseball cap that read Florist Against Crime, and Gordo was wearing sunglasses indoors like a man who had clearly given up on dignity. Dot slapped down 3 menus. You folks look like trouble. Marla smiled sweetly. Just misunderstood heroes. Dot squinted. Aren't you the ones from the news? The ones with the coin explosion. Robbie's eyes widened. Coin what? No, that's crazy. We're florists. We sell emotional support daisies. Gordo added, and Moonlight as financial advisors. Dot raised an eyebrow. Huh? Well, heroes or not, you're paying up front. They ordered pancakes, and for the first time in days, the trio sat quietly. The tension hung heavy. The sugar packets on the table seemed to mock them. Marla finally broke the silence. Okay, maybe this went a tiny bit off the rails. Robbie snorted. A tiny bit? Marla, we're 1 headline away from becoming a Netflix cautionary tale. Gordo waved a fork like a wand. Hey, could be worse. We're famous. There's probably already merch. Great, Robbie muttered. Maybe we can sell t-shirts from prison. Just then, Dot returned with a plate of pancakes tall enough to qualify as architecture. Enjoy, she said flatly. Then, lowering her voice, you should know, there are a couple cops outside. They've been asking about a suspicious florist van. The 3 froze mid-bite. Marla whispered, okay. Nobody panic. Gordo pointed at her fork. You're stabbing your pancake. She glanced down. I said nobody panic, not nobody stab. Robbie's voice cracked. What do we do? Marla took a deep breath, eyes darting around the diner. Then slowly she smiled. That terrifying, chaos-loving smile that usually meant someone was about to regret trusting her. Time for a distraction, she said. Within minutes, they'd set their plan in motion, which, as usual, was more improvisation than logic. Gordo approached the jukebox, slammed in a few quarters, and selected the loudest track possible, Staying Alive. Robbie pretended to faint dramatically near the counter. Dot screamed. Marla jumped onto a table and yelled. Everybody remained calm. We're doing a CPR demo. The cops outside peered through the window, confused. Gordo, in panic mode, started doing actual chest compressions on Robbie, who yelped, That's my spleen. Marla kept the act going, waving her arms. He's fine. He's fine. Just a dramatic florist. The music blared, syrup spilled, people applauded, because apparently, in this diner, chaos was entertainment. Then one of the cops stepped in. Ma'am, we just wanted to ask about your van. Marla froze mid-speech. Oh, the van. Yes, that's ours. We're delivering sympathy bouquets to ourselves. The cop frowned. You sure about that? Robbie jumped in, still half lying on the floor. We are extremely sympathetic. Gordo added, tragic backstory. Allergic to success. The second cop sighed. Look, folks, the department wants to clear this up. You're not actually in trouble. Apparently, some guy confessed to the robbery earlier tonight. All three froze. Wait, Robbie said. What? The cop nodded. Yeah. Said he was inspired by the Flower Bandits and wanted to take the blame. Claims he's part of your gang. Marla blinked. Our what? Doc crossed her arms. You've got fans, heroes. The first cop chuckled. Anyway, you're free to go. Maybe next time keep your hobbies legal, yeah? They left, dazed. Outside, the night was quiet. A gentle breeze blew through the parking lot. The florist van sat there like nothing ever happened, still plastered with stickers that read, Bloom boldly. Gordo leaned against it and laughed. So, we're innocent. Officially. Robbie stared blankly. Someone confessed for us. Marla smirked. See? I told you, public opinion. Chaos pays off. They climbed into the van, the adrenaline fading into relief. Robbie turned to her. Marla, promise me something. What? No more plans involving toy guns, dogs, or bank tellers. She nodded solemnly. Agreed. Next time we rob a casino. What? Robbie shrieked. Gordo burst out laughing so hard he almost choked. She's joking, man. Probably. Marla started the van, eyes twinkling. Relax. I'm retired. For now. As the van rolled away, the diner's neon lights reflected in the windshield. On the radio, a reporter's voice echoed faintly. The mysterious Flower Bandits continue to capture hearts nationwide. While their true identities remain unknown, they become unexpected folk heroes, a symbol of chaos, comedy, and questionable decision-making. Robbie sighed. You know what? I'll take that. Gordo grinned. To chaos, comedy, and questionable decisions. Marla raised her coffee cup in a toast. To the legend of the Flower Bandits. They clinked cups, laughter echoing into the night as the van disappeared down the open road. 1 part myth, 2 parts mistake, and all heart. It had been exactly 3 weeks since the Great Bank Confusion, though if you asked Robbie, it felt more like 3 decades. The trio had somehow avoided arrest, been accidentally immortalized in internet memes, and even landed a trending hashtag #BloomAndRun. Robbie was sitting on a lawn chair outside a cheap roadside motel in Arizona, sunglasses on, sipping lemonade like a man trying to convince himself his life wasn't a slow-motion meltdown. Across from him, Gordo was on a folding stool, airbrushing a t-shirt that read, I robbed a bank and all I got was this floral van. And Marla? She was inside the van, now repainted pastel pink with daisies on the sides, typing furiously on a laptop. Robbie squinted. What are you doing now? Marla didn't look up. Writing a book. Gordo laughed so hard he spilled his paint. A book? About what? How to ruin your reputation in 8 easy steps. Marla grinned. No, a memoir. Petals and Panic. How 3 idiots became America's favorite criminals. Robbie groaned. Oh good, incriminating evidence in hardcover. Relax, she said. I changed all our names. You're now called Ronnie. Gordo wiped his hands. And me? Still Gordo, she said. You're too iconic to change. Gordo puffed his chest proudly. Finally, some respect. Robbie slumped back. You realize the minute that book comes out, someone's going to connect the dots. Maybe, Marla said, but they'll be too busy laughing to care. They all fell quiet for a moment, the hum of the desert wind filling the air. The chaos had slowed down, something Robbie wasn't sure he liked or hated. Crazy how fast it all blew up, Gordo said finally. One day we're regular folks, next day we're memes. Marla smirked. Infamy is just fame with a better sense of humor. Robbie shook his head. You're a walking TED Talk on bad decisions. Just then, a car pulled up, a rusty convertible filled with college kids blasting music. One of them leaned out and yelled, What? You guys are the Flower Bandits. The trio froze. The kid waved his phone. You're legends, man. We watched the whole documentary on TikTok. Total chaos. Gordo grinned and did finger guns. Stay in school, kids. The car roared off. leaving behind a trail of dust and validation. Robbie sighed. We're not supposed to like being famous for this, right? Marla smirked. Fame is fame. You can't choose the reason. Yeah, Gordo added. At least it's not for crypto scams. Marla closed her laptop. All right, gentlemen. I got one more thing to do before we truly retire. Oh no, Robbie muttered. What now? She stood, her tone suddenly serious. We're going back to the bank. Absolutely not. Just to apologize, she said innocently. And maybe return the coins. Gordo scratched his head. You still have those? Marla gestured to a duffel bag in the van. It jingled ominously. Robbie stared. You've been sleeping next to stolen change for 3 weeks? Correction, she said. Misunderstood currency. By evening, they were back on the outskirts of their hometown. Same quiet streets, same sleepy little bank that started it all. Robbie's anxiety was practically vibrating through the van. This is insane, he muttered. You can't just waltz into a crime scene 3 weeks later. Who said anything about waltzing? Marla said, smirking. We're moonwalking. Gordo burst out laughing. I love crime with style. They parked around the corner, waiting until the bank closed for the night. The streets were quiet except for the distant barking of the same dog from before, the one that started the chaos. Even the dog remembers us, Robbie whispered. Marla grabbed the duffel bag and walked up to the bank's night deposit slot. One small step for man, she said dramatically. One giant dump for financial integrity. She shoved the bag through the slot. It made a metallic thud so loud Robbie flinched. Okay, he hissed. We're done. Let's go before. The spotlight suddenly hit them. Freeze, a voice boomed. Robbie raised his hands instantly. I knew this day would come. Then the figure stepped closer. And it wasn't a cop. It was Mrs. Hensley, the elderly woman who'd been there during the robbery, wearing a crossing guard vest and holding a flashlight. Well, she said, squinting. If it isn't my favorite disaster artist. Marla grinned sheepishly. Evening, Mrs. H returning some misplaced currency. Mrs. Hensley looked them over, then chuckled. I knew you three weren't real criminals. You're too stupid for that. Gordo grinned. Thank you. Wait, is that a compliment or an insult? Both, she said. Now get out of here before someone with an actual badge sees you. They turned to leave, but Mrs. Hensley called out again. Hey. They froze. You might be idiots, she said, but you made this boring town interesting for once. Don't lose that spark. Marla smiled. We'll try not to. As they drove off into the night, Robbie glanced back at the tiny bank glowing softly under the streetlights. So that's it, huh? The end of the chaos. Marla shrugged. For now. But chaos doesn't end, it just takes coffee breaks. Gordo stretched in his seat. Can we at least agree next time we pick something safer? Like robbing a lemonade stand. Robbie sighed. I don't even trust us with scissors anymore. Marla laughed as the van rolled onto the open road again. Relax, boys. We've bloomed, we've busted, and we've baffled the nation. That's more than most can say. The stars stretched endlessly above them, the road humming beneath the tires, and somewhere between laughter and exhaustion, Robbie realized he wouldn't trade any of it, not the chaos, not the roasting, not even the floral van for anything else. Hey, he said softly, what do we call this chapter of our lives? Marla grinned at the horizon. Easy, she said. The one where the flower bandits finally stop running and start growing. The van disappeared into the dark, trailing faint echoes of laughter, the scent of daisies, and a legend that somehow refused to die. 6 months later, the chaos had faded, mostly. The town had moved on, the bank replaced its broken coin jar, and the legend of the flower bandits had become one of those stories people told half believing, half laughing. The florist van, however, lived on. Repainted, repaired, and proudly renamed Bloom and Boom, and now sat parked outside a cozy roadside flower shop on Route 14. Above the door hung a hand-painted sign that read, The Flower Bandits, we deliver chaos-free bouquets, mostly. Inside, Robbie was behind the counter, wearing a green apron that said Petal Technician. He was carefully arranging roses, something he'd sworn never to do again. But life's funny like that. Marla was at the register, handling a customer who was trying to get a refund because his tulips didn't feel emotionally sincere. She gave him the kind of smile that could both charm and terrify. Sir, if your flowers aren't emotionally sincere, that's between you and your therapist. The customer backed off immediately. Gordo, of course, was sitting on a stool near the window, drawing a mural on the wall. It featured cartoon versions of the three of them, Robbie clutching a bouquet, Marla striking a heroic pose with a daisy, and Gordo tripping over a pile of coins. Above the mural, he painted the words, legendary, legal, lightly unhinged. Robbie stepped back, admiring the chaos. You really think people are going to buy flowers from a bunch of ex-criminals? Marla smirked. Correction, misunderstood entrepreneurs with flair. Gordo added, besides, our Yelp reviews are great. Listen to this one, ordered lilies. Got a free story and an existential crisis. 5 stars. Robbie chuckled. Sounds about right. A bell chimed as a customer entered, a little old lady with a cane, and the kind of smile that made time slow down. Mrs. Hensley. Marla beamed. You're alive. Mrs. Hensley squinted. Barely. But I heard you hooligans went respectable, and I had to see it with my own eyes. Robbie handed her a bouquet. For you. On the house. She sniffed it, nodded approvingly. Smells like redemption. Then she winked. Don't go robbing anyone with these. As she left, Marla turned to Robbie, grinning. You realize she's the only person who ever really believed in us, right? Robbie shrugged. I think she just likes watching us fail less spectacularly. Gordo set down his paintbrush. So what now? We got a shop, a mural, a semi-working van, and enough social media clout to start a podcast. Marla tapped her chin thoughtfully. The flower bandits, petals, panic, and poor life choices. I like it. Robbie threw a rag at her. No more publicity. But as he said it, he was smiling. Because for the first time in what felt like forever, the chaos had turned into something warm, familiar, almost peaceful. Outside, the sun dipped low, painting the sky in soft orange and pink, fitting colors for a story that had started in disaster and somehow blossomed into something beautiful. Robbie leaned on the counter, watching the light fade. You know, Marla. Gordo, if someone told me last year I'd end up co-owning a flower shop with two lunatics. Marla interrupted. You'd have called the cops. He laughed. Exactly. Gordo raised a coffee cup. To chaos, redemption, and free advertising from the FBI, they clinked cups together. Marla smirked. And to us, the only criminals in history who accidentally started a legitimate business. Robbie nodded, a grin spreading across his face. To the flower bandits. May we never plan anything again. As they laughed, the neon sign outside flickered to life, glowing softly against the twilight. Cherry Blossom, the flower bandits, where trouble blooms beautifully cherry blossom. And just like that, the chaos ended, not with sirens or headlines, but with laughter, daisies, and a shop full of second chances.